Result. First point is financial status of the participant. In this family, the lowest income is 6,000, while the highest is 25,000. However, the 9 family members depending on this income. The average person is very low, making it difficult to cover medical and daily expenses. This financial strain often leads to stress and conflict within the household. In such case, it becomes evident that most individuals seeking service from the center belong to the economical disadvantaged families in need to support. The second point is relief from high medical expenses. Before entering palliative care, patients often struggle with high medical costs because many of the patients are referring to the other hospital and doctors and coming to the palliative care. In the one patient is mentioned that at first my husband was able to manage the expenses with his earning as a driver, but soon the financial burden became unbearable. Third point is free accommodation and basic necessity. Many patients struggle with the daily living expenses such as rent, electricity, and food. And the one patient is mentioned that for 2.5 years, my son took care of took care of me alone at home. When I came to palliative care, I finally received proper treatment. I no longer had to pay for accommodation, electricity, or food. I found peace and love here. A fourth point is allowing caregivers to work and support their families. One of the biggest challenges faced the families members of palliative care patients in inability of caregivers to work. In the patient, according to Arvind, who was sole caregiver to his mother, he mentioned that for more than 2 years I could not leave home because I had to care for my mother all by myself. I could clean and manage everything alone. So after coming here, I can go outside for anything without any skirt, and I can also go for working. The palliative care is providing the palliative care is providing helping the caregivers to go outside. Fifth point is reducing family conflict and financial strain. Financial difficulties often become a major source of stress within families, leading to tension and conflict escaping the caring for terminally ill loved ones. In some cases, families struggle to afford basic necessities, further escalating emotional strain and conflict. Most of the families struggle with providing proper medical care at home, leading to stress and frustration. The bystander of the one patient is mentioned that we tried treating my mother's wound at home, but we were not professionals and it only made things worse. But after coming here, we feel like a blessing. Her wounds healed and our family felt at peace again. The conclusion of the research is palliative care significantly reduces financial strain by providing basic healthcare, accommodation, and necessities. Many patients benefited from cost-free treatment, while caregivers regained financial stability. Beyond finance, palliative care eases caregiving burdens and strengthens family relationships. Studies confirm that palliative care lowers medical costs and improve family well-being, preventing financial hardship from worsening conflict. Expanding access to such care ensure dignity, stability, and peace for vulnerable families. These are the some of the reference. Thank you for all the participants.
Thank you, sister, for the presentation. Now we shall have a question. So if anyone has question, you may kindly raise your question. Okay, Mike.
Hello, sister. Welcome to presentation earlier. And my question is, thematic analysis is an in-depth research and understanding focused on in social sciences, psychology, and healthcare, and in your case, it's healthcare. So I want to know more about how this thematic analysis works. How it works.
Beyond analysis only, that patients experience I have to know how they are to an experience in the scientific research. So thematic analysis to understand how we what are the points and the points to they are struggling or how they are getting benefits from the management. So using the thematic analysis to find the experience of the patients, the management. Am I clear?
Thank you. Can we have more questions? I guess no more questions. All right. Thank you, sister, for your presentation. Mm, taking care of life-threatening diseases, illness, it can be very burdening to the family with starting from rising costs in the process of treatment. And we see this palliative care is to improve the quality of life of patient and their families to support the psychosocial support and spiritual care. So I will also request the students in future to focus on health aspect as well in your research area. Thank you. Now we shall move on to the next presentation. We have Dr. Liam Kamang Robert, an independent researcher, and he is also a former assistant professor of NADER. His topic is reframing peace building in the shifting civic space of Naga society. I request Dr. Robert to take your time.
A very good morning to everyone. Respected chairperson, principal, the faculty members, my co-presenters, and all the participants here. My paper title, Reframing Peace Building in the Shifting Naga Civic Space, examines civic space as an enabling environment for civil society and how civil society can create or obstruct this enabling environment in the process of reorganizing the civic space for themselves. This paper delves into the various ways in which Naga civil society organizations reorganizes the civic space and explore the bigger implication of the reorganization of civic space on the peace building as a whole on the Indo-Naga conflict. Now, the content of my presentation is like this. First, I'll give an introduction to the concepts, then the understanding of what Naga civil society is, and the various ways in which this the shifting of the Naga civic spaces takes place. Personalization, politics of mandated and unmandated, organization personalization in civic space, publicness and publicity in Naga civic space, war, civic space and peace building, and conclusion. So to begin with, for any change to happen, you need a space. The space can be a physical space, the space can be an ideational space, the space can be in terms of a thinking space. So when you have this space for people and for organizations, for collective actions to come together without control of the government, that is called civic space. So in short, civic space is an environment that enables civil society organizations to come and perform their duty or do what they're supposed to do. That means to seek accountability from the government and also to ensure that there is a civil society. Now, when we look at the concept of civic space is not constant all the time. It is moving. So it is a moving target, and how how civic space is democratic, or how minimized, or how big, or how wide, how close the civic space is, it is manifested in the civil society organizations. Now, so in this paper, I'm using this civil society and civic space synonymously, because when civil society organizations perform their function, we have a widening of civic space. When civil society organization doesn't perform their, or are not able to perform their function, the civic space becomes small. So another concept that we're discussing here is peace building. So peace building, according to Boutros Ghali, is are those actions to identify and support structures which will tend to strengthen and solidify peace in order to avoid a relapse into conflict. And if we look at this, the concept of peace building on a broader scale, peace building rests on social, political, economic, and ecological foundation. So peace building is associated with the social, political, economic, and ecological conditions of any society, which contribute to the welfare of the people. And when we look at peace building and the relationship between this civic space, if the civic space is widened, the peace building becomes more effective. But if we look at the context of the Naga society, we already have this Armed Force Special Power Act, which is already obstructing the widening of the civic space. Now, when we look into the concept of civil society, the concept of civil society, according to the Western theories, says that civil society is a space or an organization where any free individual can come and go and form an organization whenever and however they like, provided that they are bounded by the rule of law. But if we look at the context of Naga society, civil society are mostly for Naga people. If we look at Naga Mothers Association, you can't expect a non-Naga to be a member of Naga Mothers Association. If we look at Naga Hobo, you can't expect a person who is a non-Naga to be a member of Naga Hobo, and so on and so forth. So the idea of civil society in the Western civil society in the Naga context is little different. Look at how the resources in organizations like the tribes organization can even be considered as a civil organization, though it is not free for everyone to take part, because ethnic organizations, even like the tribes organization, offers space for people to come together to discuss issues, also to stand up against the misrule of the state, and also to function as a civic organization. Now, he also says that ethnic organization that meets this function of allowing people to come together to discuss, to deliberate, to stand up against the policies of the state, these can be considered as civil society, even though they don't fall strictly under the concept of civil society. Now, according to Tuni, the organizations that we know in the Naga society, like the tribes also, the Naga Hoho, the Naga Mothers Association, the Naga Tribes Council, he says they come under the concept of homegrown vernacular civil society organization. So the concept of this vernacular civil society organizations comes from vernacularization of democracy. If we talk about voting, the way we vote in Nagaland is totally different from the way people vote in Assam. Or the way democracy should be functioning in the textbook is different from the way democracy is functioning in Nagaland, in the Naga society. Because when concepts like this are put into a real world situation, the cultural, social, and the political elements of the context influence the concepts. So concepts like this, civil society, democracy, they are known as traveling concepts. Now, if we look at what are the civil societies in this study, I consider the tribes, Hohos, the organizations that stand for Collective Naga entity like the the Naga Mothers Association, etc. The church group, like-minded organizations like ACO, Action for Against Corruption and Unabated Taxation, and other youth organizations that are prevalent in the Naga society. Now, how does this organization create the civic space for themselves? So we have this politics of unmandated and mandated organization. So I have put this unmandated in the bracket. So we have this idea, the idea of what is a civil and uncivil organization is dependent on the agenda and the mode of operation. How does this organization function? Or what is the agenda of this organization? So that defines whether this organization is a civil or an uncivil society. But in another context, we don't go for this civil or uncivil, but we go for whether the organization is mandated or unmandated. So in today's context, we have a lot of news rejoinders coming and saying that organizations, for example, like Naga organizations, for example, like Naga Mothers Association are unmandated organizations because the tribes doesn't support them anymore. So we have this idea of mandated and unmandated organization. So mandated organizations are those organizations that stands or supports the policy of the state, for example, or the policy of the power that be. And unmandated organizations are those organizations that goes against the policy of the state. But when we talk about mandating and unmandating organizations in the context of Naga society, it is not the state alone that mandates, but it is also other civil society organizations like the tribes organization. The tribes organization can pass a diktat or a circular saying that this organization so is not recognized anymore, unmandated and mandated organization. So this selective inclusion and exclusion of organizations within civil society or without civil society is what we, the way through which there is this selective closure and the selective widening of civil society taking place. And the next process through which this the widening and the closing of civic space takes place is personalization in civic space. So this personalization is a concept that is borrowed from political science. In this concept, political personalization in political personalization, it talks about political weight of an individual actor compared to the party. For example, we have this in 2014, we have this Modi weight. Modi became bigger than the BJP. So personal personalization, political personalization. Or for the Congress party, it is the Gandhi government, Gandhi family. So the Gandhi family, in a way, becomes bigger than the Congress party. So if we look at another civil society, we also have this phenomenon of personalization taking place with or without their intendedness. For example, we take Forum for Naga Reconciliation. There are studies done on Forum for Naga Reconciliation which says that Forum for Naga Reconciliation is able to cut across Naga political groups because of Reverend Dr. Wati Iyer. Reverend Dr. Wati Iyer is someone who had double PhD, someone who is working with the church, someone who is a principal of a well-known theological college in Nagaland. So all this, in a way, affect the Forum for Naga Reconciliation to be accepted among the Naga political groups. So in this way, the widening of civic space for Forum for Naga Reconciliation. Now we can take example of KK Sema. KK Sema, in his movement of Akau, he was a leader of Akau. KK Sema is well known as an IAS officer. He has written a book which talks about corruption, the antique of a civil servant. And he also was involved courageously speaking out for against corruption. And I don't know if you're aware, but 5-6 years back, a picture of him standing in City Tower facing the water cannon became a very popular picture in the social media in Naga social media space. Now, having a person like KK Sema widen the space for Akau to access the public sphere. Now, in the opposite, we also have cases where personalization also can be used for shrinking of the civic space. For example, Nagahuhu is not as important as it was before. Now the problem started when Nagahuhu got involved with the recognition of the Rongmei tribe, and the president was excommunicated. So when the president was excommunicated, people started saying Nagahuhu is an organization even where even the president himself is excommunicated by his tribe. So the space is becoming small because the attack is on the person. Now the other is Naga Mothers Association. There were so many mothers association that were associated with Naga Mothers Association, but they disassociated. Now Naga Mothers Association is made up of only a few individuals and some tribes. Now when we talk about Naga Mothers Association, the general perspective is that Naga Mothers Association is an association that is not mandated or that is not doesn't have the support of the people, and it was published even in the newspaper. And this personalization also can take place through institutional personalization, where you adopt more people connected with more people with status, prestige, and symbolic capital to be part of your organization. For this, I'll give an example of Naga Hoho. So when Naga people organizations started disassociating from Naga Hoho, for the next term, Naga Hoho constitute a search and find committee to look for members for the president, the general secretary for the Naga Hoho, and the members included peace activists like Nikitu Eralu, peace activists like the politicians like Tian Manen, who are all well known in the Naga society. So including people who are well known in the society also increases your space. The other process through which this widening or the shrinking of civic space takes place is through publicness or publicity. When we talk about uh, politics, the idea of politics depends on visibility. But a study done by Plievsky in Rajasthan says that in India, politics is not done or not dependent on participation and visibility and transparency, but politics is dependent on secrecy. So in the Naga society, if you look at the Naga society, the way politics is run or the way civil society organization function, it is done through selective disclosure and selective secrecy. So there are certain things that the civil society organization tries to cover up. There are certain things that the civil society organization tries to disclose to the people. And the disclosure takes place through slogan, public meetings, declaration, creating strategies of creating public opinion while widening the civic space. For example, I'll take the example of Accord. So Accord, when it started, it organized a lot of public rallies. So studies or analysis done on Accord says that Accord did a lot of this public rally to claim public legitimacy because Accord is not a tribes organization. So the Accord has to garner support from the public through this display of publicness or publicity. And if you are aware, in Nagaland, in the context of Nagaland, we have a lot of statements, declaration, rejoinders in newspaper. So this is also a technique of publicity and publicness in the civic space, through which an organization can widen the civic space. Now coming to how it is linked to the peace building. So when we look at these ideas or the process through which civic spaces widen, we can see that it is segmented, it is selective. It is an organization that is trying to widen its own space. It is not a collective effort. So these also have an implication on the peace building. Now we also see that the state is not the only factor that is important in widening or the shrinking of the civic space, but it is also the tribes co-hosts or even big civil society organizations perform this function. Now, all this also have an implication in the idea of peace building. In a way, peace building in a Naga context is always linked to Indo-Naga conflict, while peace building also rests on social, political, and economic foundations. So, when we talk about peace building, the Naga civil society organization fails to tackle the problem of lack of accountability from government, and also there is uncritical engagement with Naga political groups. Civil society organization will align with a Naga political group, for example, NSNK, NSNIM, NNPG, to if the agenda fits the agenda of that particular Naga political group. And we also have problem of militarization of the militarized. We have Armed Forces Special Power Act, under which we are already militarized, but then we have another 26 armed groups which is militarizing us above that Armed Forces Special Power Act again. Then we have burden of taxation, we have sliding human development index. All this also comprises the idea of peace building, but these are left unaddressed. Now, in conclusion, I'd like to say that in order to widen the public civic space, there is a need of accountability on the part of the civil society organization. Need of accountability not to those in power, but to the people, to the public, and to the people interest, and also being connected to the people interest. And the Naga civic civil society also needs to organize state and state policies from perspective that is different from the Naga, Indo-Naga political situation. When we start analyzing politics in Nagaland, we tend to do it from the perspective of the unsolved Indo-Naga political situation. But there are also other perspectives through which the politics or the realities or the embedded realities of the society can be analyzed. And there is a tendency of emotive aspects seeping in the Naga civil society space, but it should be replaced by a pragmatic aspect that is done on human rights. So I'll give you an example. Nagas, we have these historical rights that deem us that we should be independent. That is the emotive aspect. But we also should be mindful of the other aspect in a way. How is this struggle for the political sovereignty affecting us in the other areas of growth and development? Then we should also look for engagement and de-engagement. There is this idea in the Naga civic space that talks about if this organization is aligned with my objective, I'll align with that objective, align with that organization. If that organization is not aligned with my objective, I will not interact with that organization. So we have cliques of organizations, certain organizations, 4 or 5 group of organizations working for this, 4 or 5 group of organizations working for this, 4 or 5 group of organizations working for this, but not together. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that alliance building should not be selective, but alliance building should be in totality. Coalition should be in totality. Only then the capitals that are present in the civic space will become bridging in nature, and it will overall contribute to peace building in Nagaland. So these are the references, and thank you for your patient listening.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. Now we shall take the questions. If any, you may kindly take your time.
Congratulations to all of the winners. And keep going with the same spirit. My question is to the sir. Why in the civic space and changing of the civic space, looking at the two categories of leaders, what are the definition of that measure? Enhance the widening of the civic space, looking at what about the region. And expanding the share of civic space. Is there any more only assess the cost of agreeing and setting application?
Taking notice of this. So my paper is basically based on ethnographic data. So my paper deals with the data on the paper deals with the interviews and focus on discussion. But very set of development of organizations, international organizations, which can be used to collect data in a way let's get the data points to say that if so to say, there is this freedom of speech, then the speech is the result only the greatest for freedom of speech is 8 out of 10 the city spaces managed. But there is a matrix development of different organizations, but I haven't used it for my study results. And coming to leaders, in fact, is the way civic space discuss the working in the civic space is very subjective. But if I use the metrics for development of organizations, then there is a possibility of making this widely listening to listening of saying one, saying one. This is being my interviews related to new organizations that are studied. There is a tendency of biases in there. We can take other examples of high personality, very specific space, or their organization. But the collective working of the city all the organization is very difficult in London because very all the civil society organizations they have different interests and most of them their interests align with each other. And the researchers have studies done on civil society says that civil society is actually not a place not a free democratic space, but it's actually a place of contestation. But how we take over this contestation based on this democracy? Thank you for your question. I hope thank you for the wonderful presentation. I think this is going to become a achieving organizations facing challenges. When I listen to it, I was effective. I will just just but I think it would be very nice if you manage with this performance with the performance achievement. Because, for example, most of these right messages right always if we see this writing perspective ready to be able to get investigators some kind of resources. The right ways since we how they are providing general issues. So the right is what is the behaviors maintenance behaviors who is not us, but careless consequences. So I think that is the rocket to get the
Can we have more questions? Students, his specialization.
talking about improving this value in reducing stress in organization. So what goes to civil strength organization in community leaders
is developing towards the civil space.
Can you please repeat the question?
What roles do you believe schools, training, competition, and community leaders can play in supporting to build this building towards the
If I can look at the community
yeah.
playing in this building. If you look at the structure of the civil society, or at least those organizations that I consider for this study, they have this right goals. Right goals, they are derived from the community itself. Because if you look at the structure of the right goals, they are agriculture. We have range, we have different range for right. So the members of the range comes together and that's the leaders of the range like leaders for the tax goals. So there is this is where the participation of the community also can take place. Now, in the sense of choosing leaders that will represent the community, not not in a way elitist uh, religious process of this social leaders take place. At the same time, peace building in the sense is not just about the complete complete work, the environment, peace building also can even be about whether you are getting your by attacking incident of this. So, when we talk about peace building, we talk about the absence of violence. I think that the practical also the level too. It's about addressing these three levels of violence. So these level of violence are present in all levels, even in the community of levels. And community members will also can address this violence that are present in the level, and we can also practice what we can. But if we don't know this will be the bigger term of this effect. I think it's also about understanding or demanding what peace entails for me and for the community. Because we have this tendency to get the peace as we go the solution. So in the process, all the everything gets sidelined. So I don't know if the answer is you, but that is the way I see the community, the problem, community, the grassroots level, can start by making sure that the community are able to stand up against the different levels of different type of violence that are existing in the community. Okay. Thank you for this. So, I think we have answered a little bit of this. When we talk about peace building and when we talk about widening of the civic space, I think normal civil society organizations have to network and be alliance. And that have to be alliance in the sense, not that making only the kind of groups who come together when there is a question of politics or there is a question of discussing foreign policies. But it is also in the governance discuss about the various participants. It's about involving everyone. It's not just the trade organization, but other organizations in the form of paid-based organization, other organization, even in the form of registered non-governmental organizations can be part of this deliberations, can be part of this alliance building. And based on my research, this ethnographic data says that many of these civil society leaders that are actually they say that for the numbers, when we talk about unity, we think that unity is uniformity. So unity is not uniformity. So unity also in the way of producing this unity. But when we talk about unity, you can be different organizations that get politically one objective. Another thing is one of the civil society leaders, reconciliation campaign says that for him, working with the civil society organization, he feels like if I say, oh no, if that person is not coming, this time, if that particular organization is coming to this meeting, I will not come. This kind of attitude becomes like a respectful thing, starting to be respected in the society. That is what it says. So this kind of attitude or the perception about society is not contributing to this building. So this building, the sense should involve alliance between human alliance between even people with organization and people that's having perspective different from your own perspective. I don't think that this is your perspective.
Thank you so much. That was great. So, one of the arguments towards administrations of civic society or maybe CPS or specifically looking at to become that movement in this country. Especially this kind of characteristic is really acute and it involves the community. To the extent that, for example, that to the extent that even when the movement demonstrates for another movement. So in this context, what I would like to ask is, and one reason could be maybe because some CSO or very institutions become associated to the extent that they become part of the identity. So in this aspect, what I would like to ask is, how do we address this intersectionality of identity and civic space?
If you look at value of civic space and identity, I will not be able to give you a bullet point solution in the other system. I will take one try to explain in the way I see it. In India, entire children or hailing the state for hail the state in the identity. So the identity of tribe is very important in the urban context. For example, if you want to hail the state, or on the state you want scholarship, giving a scholarship, you have to use your backward reference. Suppose you say, I'm a government, so I will apply for that entitlement that is being given by the state in the form of by using my identity. So this is one level. But another thing is that at the second level we have so many large-scale actors in Northeast India that are imitating the state. So we have this armed forces, we have the state armed forces, but from that we have also like a lot of individuals other countries such as insurgent groups. So these insurgent groups are also acting like the state. They are imitating the state in the way they function. They have their own ministry, they have everything. So that is another second level. So when conflict level breaks out, the civil society also try to seek build your own capital in the way of looking out single non-state actors. that are imitating the state. So this translate interest also in a way is dependent on identity. So that is also another word. And the third interest sensibility of the civic space. Um, it also has a lot to do with how the way governance is being delivered. For example, when India was became a nation state, India was divided into different states based on the context of that region. So different regions or people who simply became a state. Now, if you look at the context of happened, the administration of the district is now based on the different districts. So the constitutional, from the constitutional framework itself, this idea of identity is being implemented. So when identity is being implemented, eventually this identity comes into the civic space. I have theorize a way of understanding that this is misunderstanding this accessibility of identity as civic space. I think this is also this is one first step in also relearning or re-engaging with this idea of identity as defining identity for politics or activities. I don't think that that's very interesting question, something to think about.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation and taking us critically analyzing civic space in the Naga context, in the process of activity promoting this building in the Naga society, particularly in Nagaland. So now we will move on to the next presenter, Jacob Tongsai. It is joint paper with Dr. Didi Sangui, Assistant Professor of Laser. Their topic is violence within violence, locating women bodies during conflict. I invite Mr. Jacob to take your time.
A very good afternoon, everyone. Respected Father and Chairperson, faculties, and fellow presenters, and their brothers and sisters. It's a great honor to stand in front of you all. Today, me and my co-presenter, Dr. Lili Sangui, will be presenting on the topic of violence within violence, how the women bodies are locating during conflict. So in the introduction, uh, India ranks 128 out of 177 countries in the Women, Peace and Security Index. And despite having policy and laws in place like Domestic Violence Act, Sexual Harassment Act, and atrocities against ST or SC in India, gender violence remains elevated. The intensity of gender-based violence intensified during conflict as women, especially their bodies, are seen as instruments of war, a site for domination. So, looking to the women's and conflict, women and men experience conflict differently. War and conflict is highly dangerous. Women face the burns of double marginalization. Women bodies are often used as a weapon of war, rape, torture, and common as it's used as a mechanism to verify the entire community by the perpetrators. Moreover, sometimes women are left alone to look after the household and find for their needs. Men in general they move to defend their lands and live forward. equal access and full participations of women in power structures, and conflict involvement in peace and conflict in the UN Security National Council, that is UNSCR. But women are hardly represented in the negotiation table, nor were their involvement in post-conflict processes on equal voting. So looking to application law during peacetime and the conflict, violence against women during peacetime and conflicts differ in the ways it is accorded and responded. Douglas' theory of criminalizations propound that state punishment involves two essential features, that is, harsh treatment and stigma, for it to have a deterrent effect in the minds of the people. Therefore, punishment for gender-based crimes and conflicts needs to be tested on the angles of these twin steps of, that is, harsh treatment and stigma. So let's compare the conflict, the peacetime where the applications of laws are implemented. Let's an example. Let's take Gujarat Riot. It is during 2002. A Muslim woman was gang raped by 11 men, and she is a pregnant woman. And also, her family, 7 members of her family were killed by the rioters. In 2004, the perpetrators were booked and arrested after the case was transferred to Mumbai. So, going to another example, that two tribal women were buried naked during the conflict, and during this conflict, so it's already been known that the two tribal women were raped and paraded naked, but the world are not waking up. So, in order to make the world or the nations to wake up, it takes 70 days to the nations to wake up after the video got viral. So, let's go to the peacetime. When there is a peace, the action were taken very swiftly, like Nirbhaya rape in Delhi. So when she was raped, it is found that uh, Nirbhaya Farm was constituted, and it started candle lighting, and also United Women across India to condemn and brought justice to the victim. And also, after knowing that, she was shifted to foreign hospital for the further medication. And also, like RG Medical College cases, it's a massive protest was organized under the banners and reclaim space. So during the conflict and during peacetime, the same figure is found missing. So during conflict, especially when it is in ethnic conflict, the next, the ethnicized natures of conflicts creates lopsided in terms of response and applications of law. Existing laws tends to be less effective in partisan government and where local institutions are ethnicized. It's become a breeding ground for gender violence, where women's bodies are used as instruments of war and politics. Women's bodies are permissible used as a battleground during conflict, or for the need to re-examine laws that are currently in place that seems to be more effective during peaceful time. A closer examination at a peace accord or agreement focuses on inclusions of women issues, their challenges, and the needs to assert justice for the victims. Mizo Accord, which is regarded as one of the most successful accords signed, is peaceful silent. And one of the level of participations and to the other side, the questions of justice and accountability for human rights violations. This Mizo Accord was signed in the year 1986, June 30, to broad peace and stability in the region. Given that women can be elevated as an agent of change, there are numerous instances where women associations can play a vital role in the peace and dialogue process. Harness the power of maternal symbolism, the hope that women could face close wounds left on their societies by wars or conflict. There is also a need to educate, create awareness on various laws within the backdrops of human rights, especially on women's rights from the gender lens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob, for your presentation. Now we shall take the question. If any question, you may kindly ask.
Asking this question to both the participants to make it in line with this presentation, which is more dangerous, violence or violence used.
Thank you so much, Robin. Which is more dangerous violence or violence. Both are very dangerous. Both are dangerous. For example, let me take example of without a court is parents not to be more successful, peaceful court in India, right? But a closer examination of the court reveals that at a community level, the conciliation happens. Because if we look at it, even in the context of politics, where we have seen lots of ethnic conflict, there is still this maybe with the army or some rank and so on and so forth. Because when peaceful accord are signed, the experience of women are not and the peace accord is to some extent romanticized. Romanticized. So there are so many people whose voice are unheard to the extent that a little things can still trigger. Still today, we have aversion to outsiders. I mean, I don't know how to explain like we started to other countries, like for example, sometimes off the records when you know that they stick to themselves, they are not really open to others as well as the because constantly is talking to them. But the suffering of people, especially women, are not part of the relationship. And this is, in a sense, quite dangerous because trauma and it is conflict can pass from generation to generation. Till today, it hasn't stopped. Even for that matter, people can. So even in this Manipur conflict also have, for example, we speak about maybe peace, but even at the negotiating tables, where are the voices of women? And then the most dangerous part is that women guardian fire used as a weapon, as a weapon, I mean, as a weapon to verify another community. And that is dangerous. Because at the end of the day, we say that the one who comes and friends and it's some people who are traumatized and are not sure what will they expect that others is
There are these one location. See, violence with all world, we can children, we victimize. Okay, this is almost the present trend of studies for most people. So there is more focus on men being and why not on men who sacrifice themselves? See, we are talking about the big things, more, this possibility of organizing, the big things that the one who is in the front, sacrificing themselves for the women who is themselves. So what is the view on this thing?
Thank you so much, Madam. If you look at the time when they started, what is how do people cheer? For example, like in our community, like when they surrender arms, we welcome. But in the manner, we will often see, like for example, there is a we always say martyrs, like Vietnam for some time. It's only for men. The theory was only for men, what about women who have sacrificed their life? Maybe even the movie or something to say that sometimes. What about that? Even in the history, you look at the history book, most of the history or the narratives are written from male perspective. And women also play one way. Maybe they might not take arms and water for night, but they were looking after the family. Let boys fight, male and women for night. They have to fight for themselves. They have to take care of their children. And for example, even now the conflict, most of the women say only women and children. So their sufferings are not yet highlighted or not included in some of our history book to the extent that their experience becomes available and part of it. So I'm just saying that even the experience, because during war and conflict, women and men experience differently. So, and on equal footing, their experience, their voice is also included. Can we have more questions? If not, we shall wind up. Thank you, Mr. Jacob and Dr. Lily for mm, presenting us and highlighting um, during conflict and violence, women and girls are primarily and increasingly targeted by the way of sexual violence. So now, moving on to the next topic, the next presenter is Mr. Teso Jembo. Excuse me if I pronounce your name wrong. He's a research scholar from Department of Law, Nagaland University. The title of his paper is The Legal Foundations of Human Rights and Social Justice, a Pathway to Equity and Peace. I request Mr. Teso Jembo to take your time.
A very good afternoon to each of you present here, respected chairpersons, organizing committee convener and secretaries, the faculties, and also to my co-presenters, the intellectuals, and then all the students and research scholars, those who are present here. Indeed, I'm honored to present here, and it's a privilege for me also to share a little bit on the human rights and social justice. I'm also glad that I'm the last speaker, where I'll make it very short, and if related to my topic, we can have more discussion on that. So my topic is the legal foundation of human rights and social justice, a pathway of equity and peace. Here, if we look to the human rights, then there is a human, there is the need of the rights, and also the society needs justice in many other ways. So without human rights and social justice, which is very important sense, but without this, the equity and peace development is impossible to happen in our society. So in the introduction, I would like to say that even if there is a human development, human rights, and social justice, without the framework of legal foundation, this cannot be exercised. And also in the principle, my research is based on the principle where I'll be highlighting a little bit on international laws and national laws in where human rights have been developed. And also for the justice and the freedom of the people. The article has also investigated the importance of the human rights, the protections, and the local legal instruments, which will be referred by the historical case law, so as to say landmark judgment by the courts. And also, my presentation will mainly focus on the Indian Constitution. The objective of this research is that to analyze the legal foundation of human rights and social justice at national and international level, and also the key provision where the Constitution of India has been drafted, where there are different kind of rights in which we can seek for the justice. That will be highlighted, and also the interaction, the intersection, or the interrelation between the development, social justice, and human rights will be also be touch a little bit where the challenges were also being there to exist the justice, by which I'll be end with the conclusion remarks of recommendation. My research was being based on the methodology where I used the doctrinal, where I did my research through reading the case law, the legal text, the constitutional provisions, and the international treaties. So coming to the topic, the international human rights and social justice. The human rights have been formed way back in 1948 through the international level, which is, we all know, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where the article have given different types of right to life, the liberty, the justice, which people should not be discriminated based on the gender, based on the color, based on the sex. And also from the International Convention of the Civil and Political Rights, where it also stated that if a person has been caged or been misled in its country or whichever, it should not be tolerated, which is inhuman act. That is all come under human rights, where sometimes when we, out of anger, we hit someone in blue back, that is also against human rights if it comes to the international perspective of human rights. And also in the Convention for Economic, Social, and Cultural Justice, where in internationally there's diversity of culture and tradition, whereas even in Nagaland we have so many different diversity on this. So in order to gain those all things, we need to have the right to health also, and the right to education is one of the important factors. Also, if we look, like I said, my article is based mostly on the constitutional rights, where it has safeguard us the freedom of rights and also the fundamental rights, which was being given in Article 14 to 32, where right to equality, right to freedom of speech and expression, constitutional provision, cultural and economic right, whichever comes under in this act, were being protected for any kind of discrimination. Also, if we look at the directive principle of state policy, this is the part 4 of the Indian Constitution, where it also highlighted the social and welfare state. It also has given the importance of economics and also the education policy, where it should be under age of 6 to 14 should be given the right to education. Without education, I think there is impossibility to reach beyond the peace and equality in society. Also in 48 or 42, in the directive principle of state policy, it mentioned that environmental is also one of the important rights, where as a human, we need to have a clean environment, we need to have all the basic rights which the ecosystem have been provided, such as the Forest Right Act, whichever. And then everything that's come under Indian Constitution has judiciary power, where there is a separate body for judiciary in our government. Where without any actual case has been happened, it is difficult for the government to implement such kind of law. So if we see in Kasavanandi Bharatian versus State of Kerala, in this case, it is stated the fundamental right, which is from Article 14 to 20, 32, it cannot never be changed. For example, right to equality can never be changed, whichever party government has been running our country, or the secular or the republic, those cannot be changed, whichever comes under the basic structure. And in Maniki Gandhi versus Union of India in the year 1978, it also gives the example of the right to equality, where Article 14 and the right to 19, freedom of speech and expression, where we misuse or we are being controlled that we cannot say things which we want to say, that come under Article 19. And also in the Article 21, which states that right to life, we have a basic right, we have our lives to live to the fullest of which capacity we are. So this was being done through the Maneka Gandhi. And then in Vasika versus state of Rajasthan, where the sexual harassment has been common in the workplace. For example, if this into a woman or sexually having eye contact with the women, those become sexual harassment. So in this very case, the Supreme Court also stated that it violates the rights of the basic human rights of the women. So this comes under the fundamental right, which we cannot be changed. And then in the rule of law and access to justice in India, to straighten those things, the Legal Service Authority, many of you have heard about National Legal Service Authority or District Legal Service Authority, where there is a free access for the justice to be given to the economic background person or to the women. And also the public interest litigation, where the common voices, one of our friends has also stated about the drugs law. If we see in the Samsara Act, through his presentation, I would like to bring up how PL can be filed. Through his presentation, he has stated about samsara. If you look to the samsara concept in the law, it comes under Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1958. In this act, while sunflower is still a lot in Nagaland, though there are law to control, if we see that we are in the northeast of the side of northeast, where we are very much close to the world highest hotspot for the drugs. That is the Golden Triangle. That Golden Triangle is known as the where Laos, Thailand, and Myanmar are the hotspot of that. And also, if we look to the Golden Crusade, which is South Asia, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, though we know all those things, we intentionally have all those things. So, as a citizen, as a scholar, as an educated person, we can file PIL to the court stating that this should be banned in our community or this should be banned in our district. Such thing can be filed against PIL to access justice through judicial activism. So in the case of there is a particular case in Hassanara, Khartoum versus State of the Art. In this case, it happened that there are many people in the jail where they cannot provide their own lawyers because of financial. So they are being kept in jail without giving any rights for them to release. So that is the case where speedy trial was given, where the fundamental rights of being right to life and personal liberty have been given for having the case in the speedy trial. So the interaction of human rights and development and social justice, where stated that education is one of the important goals. Now, the education has been become the part of fundamental rights, where Article 21 of A in the 86th Amendment, it stated that 6 to 14 years should get mandatory education. That has become one of the important aspects. Also, the human right not only say our but also the livelihood, the accessibility of our dignity, and also the balancing the development and sustainability, Article 21, where the right of life has been important. And also in the directive principle, which I have stated in 48A and 51A, both have been discussed about the environment. The environment that we are living should be properly safeguarded by the laws in order to have fresh air, fresh water, and also the fresh of whichever the nature produces to us. So the key challenges in the human rights protocol is that protection is that there is a weakness in the law, especially in the state compliance issue to safeguard the human rights. There is also a legal gap where refugees and all the illegal immigrants and all were being locked down, and also now the digital rights where there is a defects or there is an AI tools where a person can be imitated to different person, that can also hurt our rights in days to come. Also, the social political work is one of the main concerns where the other speaker have also mentioned. And also the proceeding of judicial is becoming slower than the before. But to give them more recommendation through my study, I would like to suggest that strengthening of legal aid, which I have mentioned, and judicial reform. Even if there is a delay in judicial, I think the online system of e-courts should be applicable. Under, under the human rights and the emergence challenge of digitals has become one of the important factors. In the conclusion, I want to sum up that the importance of human rights and social justice with the implementation of the right law should be prevailed so as to have more peace and equity in our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teso Jemo, for the presentation. Now we shall have question and answer hour. So if anyone has a question, now you may kindly take your time.
Share how can we use system in way more accessible for generalized communities? Therefore, what steps can we take to strengthen human rights protection in our society?
Put your day up to justice to say, take your case to say justice for you. I think that is the only step where the government can take up to bring justice to our population for us.
Ulil, can you give an example of a law that has successfully improved social justice? Will you kindly give an example of a law that has successfully improved social justice?
Social justice can be defined in many ways. Some can be found under human rights, some can be in terms of environment also. Because we live in a society, we live in an environment to get good natural resources. For example, some of the that would come under the previous responsibility with about 371. In this regard, every village, every tribe, or every district, they have their own village authority. For example, a Islamic organization, or the other tribe have their own organization, the faith. So they have a platform for themselves to go for hunting this month, or to guard resident investigation, to guard level of this month. So if we follow all those things, we are also getting good benefit from our destroy the natural resources, so they have to pay. So in that case, in our society also, if we use those things, the social justice, the personal society will be in a good hand as a having the capacity of human rights, also the social justice. So that will all I would say about the question.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent presentation. Well, I have a question for you. You have mentioned the word social justice, and I'm very curious regarding this word because we talk a lot about social justice, but are we like really sure that we're looking at justice? For example, in every now and then incidents or news, you often see like women being raped or a child being raped by soldiers. So if justice is really for the victim, they will have to go, the more will go on the pathway and the report is like, we want justice for the right. So is justice really being given to the victim? And there are many cases in India where the victim's report has been disclosed without getting justice, without giving justice to the victim. So can you please explain on that?
The question answers it because sometimes we also beyond the business. So that's the women are getting best. But speaking to them sometimes to the or if not, the those who didn't get it, to give an example from states, sometimes it is the customer with the person or the sister people, we talk to beat them up and program to the ways. But if you go to the Indian context, there are signals against the community, and these are very, very strong. For example, my child, if Papa was told, then you will never get it there, or you will not go to the so those are very, very strong. People truly like and people involved in the understanding of the customer can give much better than that when it's got the depth making up those examples are those are not really and people go to the Indian nothing. It is because others prefer the Indian because people go to the life user, if they are very 50% of people they deserve to pay citizens. So if we look at this context, this is specific. I think those who are very specific and also she's giving the context. So sometimes when we use importation and part of the text, we live in there. We don't have the complication all of the choices for different section, for example, if some person is bent someone with a police some person people but we will do something composting or basically we give up one posting and accept as it is. But we will not do. Thank you for your presentation. In fact, I went to your stage. It was very impressive to attend the conversations. This is what we have a small question. Like yesterday, we also associations for this peace, conflict, or peace. We have already learned from many analysts. It is not only about sensation and supporters. It is about assessments, assessments. So, since you are emphasizing assessments, I would like to know in market context, since you are research products, what is the status of legal aid system. This is provided and what are the benefits of government and what are the challenges we face to implement and what are the aspects or interests of schools. Regarding the critical if I can mention that later, 2017 to 19, also working as a director, as a parameter director under the Cable Service organization. Here, I am taking the thing of that where both working in some of the education, which may be and where we are going to do that, I prefer that many other just kind of branch, especially the women. There are so many domestic violence in our state, especially in Jibouti. I think as a Christian, we know it because as a Swedish member, where even if the food is one sector, one Djibouti government, the very anyhow, sometimes without even getting sometimes without any community. So I think those the techniques can go to the court and they have to be involved in what they most of the time government. But when it comes to legal service authority, the government doesn't need to pay anything. The government does not will not go into represent those cases. So in that regard, women Indian justice because any amount that she has to pay for the utility. So what we have to do now is that we should be more updated ever there is some kind of diseases in our state, especially in all the state, development district court, under the district court, there will always be a authority. Whereas this good religion situation was in case which is not because it is unlimited, especially the council district authority and cleaning can be really nominated and student can be impacted as a ground of paper. Why to be more concerned with the get more care guidance also can contain the concept. If it is 2020, they can have most things. So if I'm going to get my LLB book, don't want to the first one is maybe everybody is keeping up. It's not just it's a big problem. So I think that a strong children people like or a small team can legal matter take care of while the schools it will be supervised after last thing that will go in. So I think that is to be a solution for that. And also regarding to the thing, it's really well generation. It is also one of the primary where we can say those things. So we have a unique condition that we can take those together.
Thank you for your visit. I just want to quick. So in this in Nagaland, we look at social justice. Social justice from the perspective of Indian law. The law guidelines are accepted. There are tendencies where since Indian law code takes time, there is those criminal cases that are addressed by the Indian law code, like even the registered institution. And at the same time, applying to the registered institution, we also have this example of the and we are having different organizations. It's also there, government justice. So, how do we deal, how do we see this intersection with this and ensure that social justice law is delivered without this place possible?
particular number and display the people very after the because the rest of the state. Because number we have to which is what our considered as a customer and the other is the where the person by himself has whatever output customer, whatever output from people, they are not going to do so what people have is involved. What you when you help the police or I think people also consider me if I go to the new organization, we have some friends to my house or in a criminal case in my house. So in another we see that there is a police involved. If we can go for other custody or other people, but coming to the context where as the organization is busy, I think they grow because what we see in the world is that if I make mistake, it is me who has to be punished, not my family. Sometimes hospital go with two issues. If in case I torture someone in your family, then the whole family will not allow family. So that happens sometimes because the member became I did not know I'm the full responsible. I deserve to get the maximum punishment which they are stated. So I think that is to know when you come to know the different kind of organization. I think it is quite good that we should also follow the legal things which your because of that there is no second so I think this is potential. I think we should decide also to get better.
Any more questions?
Yeah, first of all, I'm here to achieve presentation. Since we're talking about the women's association space, now I'm going to talk about the topic, the person's mental health issues. Let's see, in United Society, I'm asking this question because I'm running an NGO and this mental health preventive this is related to mental health. So we come across a lot of issues like this, after meeting people, denying community people with disabilities or people with mental health issues. And there is a mental health care act, which protects the rights of people with mental health essential, and many of our people are not aware of the rights. And this one reason they are being, that they have the attitude, like, so they deny the access to community type. So, as civil society or, a responsible citizen, how should we, what steps or what measures should we take to protect the rights of people, with mental health issues, and other community members, especially in rural areas, this is a major challenges because families are facing. So, what steps or measures should we take?
Issue. And this is one of the important issues I think especially for the because mental issue can be on the spectrum. Some will be because of education, some will be because of work pressure. For example, mental medications, for example, drugs. I myself was also did the research for drugs for the whole of the district of Canada. My research very especially in this 17 to 24-year-old people using drugs. And for example, using that is coming from the women as I said, it is very close to the local table. So what the principle is this is to technical say drugs when you come to the world because this is the cheapest one where it's very executing the government students and especially for the paper project. But what happens is once a person is used before the society will say it's a drug, all you need is to monitor. And we then the method to pay. So there is one to prosper any youngster, we get we have leadership information, data center, that's very much as digital. Many of them are under paper space, as we said, because the service sector is a transfer. So they want into the because the book is to transfer. So that means making more than everything one to give up. That is one thing. And the other side of the mental movement from the substance, that is to do with the education. So, and the other one is work pressure. Sometimes we are being asked to do work pressure with very kind of sensitivity of it, where the duration of the instruction is not given. Highly expected, highly expected also to different kind of solution. Then also with the work pressure, especially spectrum of institutional, dependent on public sector. Because at least we have to consider something. But then we don't get to expose one of the things which is to be here. Like I said, if it comes to the society, which you see so much better in this here. There is something to do with it, if you say, but you know, say, 70% be low ratio or things like that. So what to do is that which will enhance the behavior. Because many societies will also come under this where it makes himself worse in society. So the come up with social justice, I think the behavior of the person and also the culture establishments in come up with such those where change for people that is the only possible thing to get such methodologies which would be
Thank you, Team Vishal Wainap, for today's or design. Thank you, Mr. Teso Delvo, for your wonderful presentation, highlighting the foundations of human rights and social justice, the importance of legal system, emphasizing on the Indian Constitution, the fundamental rights and key provision for social justice, for equitable and resilient society in the process of peace and development. So with this, we come to an end, and then I thank all the paper presenters for your wonderful papers, and not forgetting the participants for actively evolving. I thank all of you for the enriching and enlightening session. Once again, thank you. There's few announcements. There's information like for the paper presenters, they will be handing over certificates during the valedictory program. So we would like to request you to kindly attend our
program that we